actually going to try to cover 3 different periods since Lionel isn't here. As I mentioned, I'm Francois. I am the founder of an organization called In Culture Company, and we work on peace, reconciliation, and conflict resolution between Haitians and Dominicans. Please follow us on Instagram. We do workshops called Colonizing Hispaniola, which starts, similar to this conversation, with a combined history of the island. I'm really happy that Mitch covered some of the points that he covered, because one of the things that I always say is that what happens after the revolution is more important than the revolution itself. And so this indemnity that we Haitians had to pay to France is actually the reason that the island ended up splitting into 2 countries when it was unified as one under Haiti, because the people who would become Dominicans did not want to pay the taxes needed to pay France. But moving on to 1946, one of the things that the Haitian Revolution and throughout Haitian history, Haiti has not been able to deal with in any meaningful way is the color and the class issue. And colorism and classism in the Caribbean and Latin America are just 2 sides of the same coin, to be quite honest. So for a very long time, what you'll see in Haiti is a series of white passing, as we like to say nowadays, presidents and leaders who solidified power in the hands of the few, in the hands of the descendants of former slave owners and their mixed-race children, without really dealing with the fact that there really were several different Haitis at the end of the revolution. There is the Haiti of the white and light-skinned elite that were children and descendants of slave masters who were usually educated in France and also owned land and had inherited plantations from their father. And then there was the Haiti of the vast majority, who were mostly black people who had not inherited anything, neither land nor money or any types of resources. And so rather than dealing with that, Haiti continues to pass the buck. And this ends up splitting the country into 2 parts, as Mitch mentioned, which is the Black Kingdom of the North, and then Kingdom North. Gave him the third flag there. And then the Republic of Haiti, which is the mulatto capital in the south. And up until 1946, this issue of colorism and classism continues in Haiti. And the president, Eli Lescott, at this time has a government that is run by the light-skinned elite and leaves the majority of Haitians out of every system of government and governance in the country. And oftentimes we talk about Haiti in a vacuum, but this is also the same period of time as the Russian Revolution's going on, the Spanish Civil War is going on. You have Jacques Romain, who's a Marxist poet, writing about class revolution that's going on around Haiti and around the world. And a group of young Marxists that are students rise up and they start really examining the country around them and the inequality around them. And they start a newspaper called La Gauche, which is speaking out against classism and colorism and really criticizing Lescott's government for continuing this system of 2 Haitis, basically. And this student protest leads into a national protest where the shop owners shut down the shops, business owners shut down their businesses, and really the country comes to a stop until Lescott decides to step down or face violence from the military. And at this time, Estime, who was part of the Young Marxist protest, comes to power, and he has an equalizing effect in which you see the rise of the black middle class in Haiti. We see more black Haitian generals in the Haitian military.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Can you just repeat his name? The man who came out of the Marxist...
Yes. estimate.
Okay, I'm sorry, can you spell that?
E-
I meant to ask you,
sorry.
can you spell it?
How do you say it in English?
E-S-T-I-N-E.
E-S-T-I-N-E.
Yeah.
Accent over
Not
here.
E.
Yeah, sorry. My accent will go in and out, so y'all just let me know when it becomes too Haitian for you. So this is a really important period in Haitian history, but again, what we see is that there are very surface level changes that happen. This is called a lot of people refer to this as the color revolution in Haiti of 1946, because again, it makes a very surface attempt to deal with the issue of colorism, but no systemic change happens. You get more black people in positions of power, more black generals in the military, but the deep-seated issues of who owns the land in Haiti, who owns the ports in Haiti, who owns the means of production in Haiti, none of those systems really change. So you get black faces, but the light and white elite continue to run things in the background. So moving on to the next upheaval in Haiti is one of the things that we see happen is that during this period of 1946, with all these social movements happening, there becomes a movement called Noirism that happens as well. And Noirism is a very radical take on what is that movement coming out of the French Caribbean? And then the Negritude movement. So the Negritude movement is coming out of the French Caribbean, and even the Spanish Caribbean also has a version of a Negritude movement that happens. And it's really pushing for the idea that the black former colonial countries of France have the same equal rights, need the same equal recognition. Noirism that starts in Haiti takes this to the next level and says that black people should be the only people that rule Haiti. Haiti should be ruled by black supremacists, and that it takes a really revisionist approach to Haitian history and says that there's never been any light-skinned or white people in Haiti. And if you know Haiti or Haitians, you know that is not true. And initially, Noirism is dismissed as just black mythology by a lot of Haitian scholars and the Haitian elite because it's such a radical take on Haitian history to just say that there have never been light-skinned or white people in Haiti. Light-skinned and white people have never had positions of power and should never have power. This is not the way that the documents of the Haitian Revolution have ever been interpreted. So it's easy for Haitian scholars and activists at the time to just completely dismiss it. But who comes out of Noirism as a prominent writer? Jean-Claude Duvalier. François Duvalier, the first Duvalier. And Duvalier understands the Haitian peasantry because he spent a lot of time as a doctor. He understands that all the changes of 1946 were just surface level, that the light and white elite continue to run things in the background. And so he's able to mobilize a movement and get himself elected president. And immediately we see Duvalier is a Trump-like character, that his platform was just so outrageous, where he's like, I'm going to take all the light-skinned people out of government, I'm going to do all these things, and people are like, there's no way he's going to do that. And as soon as he comes to power, he does all of the things that he says he's going to do. He massacres entire towns of light-skinned people. He promotes a secret police that really holds Haiti in the grips of fear and lockdown so that people are afraid to speak out against him. He even changes the Lord's Prayer to put his name in as the Lord. And so my mother, who grew up during this period of time, remembers praying to Jean-Claude Duvalier instead of God at the time. Jean-Claude Duvalier is not his father. He's more interested in throwing lavish parties, spending the country's money, and not really in governing in any way. And so the economy starts to tank very, very quickly. And again, another student protest rises, and you see the student-led movement again pushing the country and becoming the country's kind of moral compass. And after 3 students are slain in Gonaïves by the government, the entire country coalesces in this movement and pushes Jean-Claude Duvalier out once again. I have 5 minutes left, so I'm just going to quickly talk about what's going on currently in Haiti. So currently there's the Petro-Caribe movement going on, and again, this actually started in July 2018 as a protest against IMF enforced austerity measures. Because one of the things that we've seen in Haiti is that neoliberalism has really shifted the way Haitian society is run. And so what oftentimes looks to people on the outside like a protest against one president is actually a protest against the entire system of neoliberalism as we know it. And the way this has functioned in Haiti, for example, is that we've seen the privatization of most Haitian national infrastructure. We've seen that Haiti now imports 51% of all of its food and 80% of all of its rice, in a country that can produce both without problems. And using tariffs, the U.S. government has forced Haitian agriculture to focus on exports, even though Haiti has one of the highest rates of hunger in the region. And Haitian labor is pushed off their land and oriented towards sweatshops. And as long as these structures stay the same, because as we saw in 1946 and 1986, what continues to happen is that there may be a face, and sometimes the face is light skin, sometimes the face is dark skin, but in the reality is that there are a few families and what they call the core group, which are a few international organizations and institutions that really run Haiti and have continued to keep these cycles of poverty going. So the current protest movements hope to kind of create an upheaval in that system, but it's a very big system to change. So those are just like 3 social movements in 15 minutes. And I know it was a lot of information. I think there are multiple things going on the island as a whole, and the region, because we can't remove the island from the entire region that it's in. So I talked about the Petro-Caribe movement that's going on the island, and that is being repressed as much as the government can. I think what the government would like to do is just kind of wait the people out and see if they tire themselves out. And what's happened in Haiti is that in my knowledge, even for like generations older than I am, this is the first time that we've seen a government not back down to the people, which is worrisome, because it's still not clear what that means in the long term for the people. And what's happened as well is that, like, as this movement's continued, they've taken kind of like an Occupy Wall Street approach, where it's a leaderless movement, which means that it creates a vacuum when you have no appointed leader for other people to step in and declare themselves a leader. So we see opposition parties in Haiti trying to take advantage of this movement to steer it in a direction that they want to go politically, which is not necessarily the same as where the people want to go. But in reality, the Haitian elite, the Haitian oligarchy continue to run the country, and they are fine. Because, as I mentioned, there's 2 Haitis. There's the Haiti for a minority of people who go to great restaurants and drive Porsches and have a great life, and then there's the Haiti for the majority. And because of this vacuum that's been created, there's also an opportunity for the grandson of Duvalier, Nicolas Duvalier, to step in. So he's been making overtures into politics, as well as on the other side of the island, the grandson of Trujillo also is running for president. So it's an interesting time on the island where it's really hard to see where it's going when the entire region in reality is moving towards the right, and the DR especially is moving to the far right, and in Haiti it's still too early to see where it's going, but if we look at what's happening in DR and the region as a whole, it's likely that Haiti will move to the right too, unless a new leader steps into that vacuum.
The Dominican state or not. I know I'm from the Dominican Republic. We tend to say that there is no racism in the Dominican Republic, which is a fallacy. We know that in both colonies, the means of production and the way that the society was structured was basically centerpiece was race. In that particular sense, if you were white, you were at the top of the society pyramid. If you were the lighter skin, you would be potentially in the middle. If you were mulatto or mestizo, or if you were black, you were at the bottom. Many Dominican intellectuals, when I was writing an honor thesis about the Dominican Republic and Haiti back in 2004, 2005, they used to say, no, the reality it is that in Dominican Republic what we have is a cultural system of racism, but not institutionalized racism, and as well as the racist system in Saint Domingo was harsh than in the Dominican Republic. What I said to one of the intellectuals was, if that was true, you can be part of my benign, for 1 year you can be my slave in my benign system just to see how will you feel. And the person say, no way. We can imagine, which is basically trying to cover the reality of slavery. But it's very important, but here's the thing that sometimes we tend to obscure. After 1844, the Dominican Republic and Haiti, the Dominican Republic after the independence faced a reality, and the reality that we couldn't deny, that was basically, there was many attempts by the Haitian state to take over the eastern part. That was a reality that happened, and we couldn't deny that part on that. But you couldn't, during that time, you didn't see the type of anti-Haitianismo and anti-negrismo that we are seeing at this moment, including like during the Restoration War for gaining the independence from Spain. We can see that many of the leaders are mulatto or dark skinned, and Haitians exactly. And also we can see that for example, one of the president, the lyrical dictator, was Ulysses Herox. Who basically with the support at the beginning of the elite, and he was a black Dominican politician. And there are I think Martinique also.
Several countries.
Yes, several countries. And there were reasons why that happened. One of them, from my understanding of my study, it is that Dominican Republic after 1844, there were like four different countries. They were not a consolidated state per se. So the promoting of racial ideology, it was very difficult to bring as a state policy. That's something that changed after 1916 with the American intervention, and also basically for the U.S. to really diminish what we call the national state movement that happened. We basically tend to take part and glorify more the European the European descendant of the European symbol. It doesn't mean that it didn't exist before, but with the American intervention and then the ascendant of Trujillo, who basically founded the modern state, then you're starting to see a consolidation of what we can call here a white supremacist ideology. Very clear, the consolidation. And this is the type of consolidation, the consolidation of Trujillo and the importance of Trujillo is very key. For the first time, what Trujillo, when he ascended to power, the first thing that he did very well in that sense, was that there were different regional caudillos in the whole island, and he eliminated all of them, basically. And then he consolidated the state, and then he basically, with the church, the Catholic Church, and the educational system and the forces, starting to basically promote what would be the national identity. And that's the national identity that we today, Dominican, have. A good example of that, which is institutionalized. You can ask somebody who is Dominican Republic, when I was doing my thesis, my research, I asked people, what color do you identify? So somebody like me didn't identify as black, they identify, and it's a social construction, as we know, racism, a color. But the person said, no, I don't identify as black, I identify as mulatto, mestizo. And it was a shock to see that a person can get into an airplane in 3 hours, then their identification changed immediately. But not just that, like a part of the identification was that in 2004, I went to the Dominican consulate when the first time people were allowed to voting and getting their ID. And I asked the person to put negro in my, identification. That was the color that they put, and they said, no, you're not negro. And I'm like, you're Indio. I'm like, I didn't know. I know that part of my family is Jew, but I didn't know that I have indigenous family, indigenous blood. And they were no, and they called 3 people just to tell me that I'm not black. After I went to the Dominican Republic, I said maybe it's something that happened here in the, in an institutional Dominican government in the United States. I went to the Dominican Republic, and the same thing happened. So we can say whether there is an institutionalization of racism. That was in 2005. 2013, then came with the decision of the Constitutional Tribunal. That came to realization. That was very open into that. And we can mention, and my time is up, I'm trying to be clear on that, we can mention that a good example of how racism is institutionalized in the Dominican Republic was in the 1996 election. In 1996 election, Peña Gómez ran against Balaguer, the PRD and the Partido Reformista Social Cristiano, and now the PLD also. And in a very cavallistic way, authoritarian regime, Balaguer represents the state. He was the head not just of the presidency, but the head of the state. And there was a very systematic campaign against Peña Gómez. It wasn't about that his party was corrupted. It wasn't about that. It was about that Peña Gómez. It was a denunciation about Peña Gómez descendants, that he was Haitian descendants. The contradiction of that is that every candidate in the Dominican Republic, Jacobo Macluta, came out and said, in the past, I was very proud Turkey, my family, it is from the Middle East. Salvador Jorge Blanco, my family is from the Lebanon. And Balaguer, my family is from Spain. So that was very, very key, a good example of how racism worked. My time is up, I have more to say, but thank you.